Chapter 6. I lay around the pool the rest of the afternoon, pondering the time with JD. What was it about him? True, he was handsome with his toned body and tanned skin. I could picture myself enjoying being wrapped in his arms. But he was also obsessed with God, which I had no stomach for. So why couldn't I get him off my mind? I'd probably never even see him again after leaving the Caribbean, but I couldn't shake the image of his face from my mind. At 4 o'clock, I headed back to the room to shower and prepare for dinner with Owen, which I was no longer remotely excited about. For whatever faults he had, JD was right that I didn't need another man like Owen. But I had promised to go, and I didn't like reneging on my word. I chose the new colorful maxi, which ended up hugging my hips, and a matching blue tank top I had brought with me for dinner. As I regarded the image in the mirror, I thought about changing, because I didn't want to look too good and lead him on. But a check of my watch showed 6:02. Perfect. I hated being the first one when meeting people, but if I were any later, it would be rude. Exiting the room, I headed to the hotel bar to meet Owen. The music spilled out of the restaurant before I even reached the entrance. Well, this isn't going to be the best place to have a conversation. I scrunched my nose, coughing at the smell of cigarette smoke that permeated the air as I made my way toward the bar. Owen sat perched on a bar stool, drinking a beer and surveying the crowd. His eyes lit up and he lifted his hand in a wave when our eyes met. I took a deep breath, exhaled, and headed that direction. It's just dinner, remember? Well, hello, gorgeous. He grabbed my hand and his eyes traveled my body up and down. It was a gaze that left me feeling dirty more than desirable. The hair on the back of my neck bristled with his gaze. Hello yourself. I flashed a tight smile and extricated my hand as politely as I could. Do you want a drink? Sure, I'll have a tequila sunrise. I was going to need quite a few drinks to get through this evening. After the drinks were ordered and poured, we made our way to a secluded booth in the back. The low lighting set a romantic air, and since the booth was surrounded on 3 sides, only the general buzz and not specific words of the conversations around us reached my ears. So, why did you decide to become a lawyer? Owen's eyes focused briefly on mine before trailing down to stare at my lips. I placed a finger to my lips. Why had I become a lawyer? It seemed so long ago I wasn't even sure. Well, I always loved arguing when I was younger, and TV made it look glamorous. Yes, it does. I bet you would be fantastic on TV. He placed his fingers on my arm and traced an imaginary pattern. My skin crawled, and I grabbed my drink, dislodging his hand. What about you? How did you get into... What do you do again? I took a sip, but as soon as I set the drink down, his hand resumed its position. I sell insurance. My dad owned the company, and I joined him. He traced his fingers up my arm. Stifling a shiver, I tried my best to ignore his hand. You don't want to sell insurance? He scooted closer and laughed. No. Not at all. But the money is good, so why change? Something in that answer sounded so wrong, but I wasn't sure what. I loved money too. It was one reason I had gone into law in the first place, though I wasn't at the point where I was making good money yet. Still, money equaled power, which equaled happiness, right? So, how long are you here for? Owen changed the subject. I focused back on Owen and the current conversation. I'm here for about 20 more days. He pouted his lip. Well, I leave in 5 days, but I hope we can spend a lot more time together. As he inched closer, he winked and licked his lips. Unlike the wink that JD had thrown last night in the bar, Owen's wink was leering and creepy. Mm-hmm. I nodded, pursing my lips together and glancing around. How long had I been here? More importantly, how much longer did I have to stay before I could leave without appearing rude? As Owen continued rattling on about his work and his hobbies, I snuck a quick peek at my watch. 6:30. Ugh. I'm going to need more tequila if I have any hope of staying here much longer. I caught the waitress's eye and motioned for another drink. Tuning back into the conversation long enough to hear, NASCAR is like the best sport. I rolled my eyes and tuned out again. Oh, Lord, does he have nothing intelligent to talk about? I stirred the straw in my drink and thought back to the afternoon with JD. He had been so easy to talk to and had intelligent things to say. True, he was a bit of a Bible thumper, but so was my mother, and perhaps I could loosen JD up. I jumped as Owen's hand relocated from my arm to my knee. I don't think so, mister. Picking his hand up, I smiled and placed it back on the table. Owen never missed a beat, just kept rattling on. My second drink arrived and I downed it, sighing as the alcohol relaxed my muscles. Maybe Owen isn't that bad after all. At least he's cute, and I could probably shut him up easily. The third drink arrived and my lids grew heavy. I shook my head and took a deep breath, opening my eyes wide, but the spinning room stirred nausea in my stomach and I blinked them closed again. Another round? Owen leaned forward. I shouldn't, I replied, pushing my glass away. Oh, one more won't hurt, Owen pressured, signaling the bartender. No, really, it's no problem. The lady said she's had enough. The commanding voice sliced through my fog, and I raised my head to see JD standing at the end of the table. Though the rest of the world spun, my eyes locked on his, relief coursing through my body. Excuse me, but we're on a date here. Owen stood, squaring his shoulders and throwing his chest out. JD didn't take Owen's bait. Instead, he crossed his arms and returned Owen's stare. And it just ended. His words were cool but confident. He unfolded his arms and stretched out a hand. Callie? I looked from one man to the next, mumbled an apology toward Owen and took JD's hand. Whatever, Owen said and stomped away. My world tilted as I stood up and my knees buckled. JD wrapped an arm around me and I leaned into him, placing one hand on his chest. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. He smelled clean and salty like the ocean. Sighing, I laid my head on his shoulder as he led me out of the bar. There was a safeness and security in his arms. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so protected. What's your room number? JD asked, shaking my shoulder. 103, I whispered, and my eyes closed again. Whoa, no falling asleep yet. JD shook a little harder this time. It was a struggle, but I managed to keep my eyes open until we got to my door. Key? He prodded. Somewhere in there, I mumbled and held out my bag. He rummaged in the small purse until he found the key card, inserted it, and opened the door. Taking my hand, he pulled me into the room. The light clicked on and illuminated the room. Thank you. I turned to face JD and fell into him, placing both hands on his chest. His muscles quivered and I bit my bottom lip, turning my face up to his as desire coursed through me. JD stared down at me, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Then he grasped my upper arms and tried to turn me around. You need sleep. I doubled my effort, shaking off his hands. I know what I need. My hands moved up his chest, enjoying the feel of his taut muscles beneath them, and wrapped around his neck. Don't you find me attractive? JD sighed and removed my arms from his neck. He held both hands and stared into my eyes. That isn't the issue, Callie. You aren't yourself right now. You've had too much to drink. A seed of anger flared inside, and I yanked my hands from his. I'm fine. The feeling of rejection was sinking in yet again. You can leave now. Callie. No, really. I crossed my arms. You can go. JD shrugged and sighed. I'll be around if you need me. I won't need you. With the little sobriety I had mustered, I slammed the door behind him and threw myself down on the bed. Why? Why is this happening to me? I thrashed back and forth and pounded my fists on the bed. I want my perfect life back, and my Daniel back, I shouted to the room. I don't know who I expected to answer me. I just needed to get the words out. Grabbing a pillow, I covered my face and screamed into it. Slowly, the screams subsided to moans, and I removed the pillow, cradling it to my chest. I don't even care about the affair. Just send Daniel back to me, please. I want my old life back. I curled into a ball as the ocean of tears poured down my cheeks until I fell into a fitful sleep. JD leaned against the hallway outside Callie's room and rubbed his temples. The urge to knock on her door and talk things through coursed through his body. He hated leaving angry words as the last words. He'd promised himself after Alexa that he'd never do that again. The more important question was, why did he care so much about her? He barely knew her, but there was something in her eyes that affected him. He wanted to ease her pain and make sure she never felt any again. But what if he never saw her after this? What if he had ruined his chance with her? He couldn't remember the last time he had been so affected by a woman. His hands shook as he ran his fingers through his hair. There was nothing more he could do tonight, so he pushed himself off the wall and forced his body down the hall to his room. When his own hotel room door closed behind him, JD crossed to the nightstand where his Bible lay. He turned to the book of John in the New Testament where he had been reading yesterday, but the words kept swimming together. His heart still drummed too fast in his chest, so he closed the Bible and got down on his knees. Placing his elbows on the bed, he folded his hands together and leaned his forehead against them. Blackness filled his vision, but words formed in his mind and flowed out from his lips. Lord, I don't know Callie, or what her pain is about, but I sense that her heart is hurting. I want to be a good example for you before her. Please help me find the words I need to say, and help me be the witness you would have me be. He remained silent, listening for the still, small voice, and hoping that tomorrow he'd get a chance to see Callie again.